you've been working on these materials for a long time, but when did the point come? So let's start from the beginning. You've been investigating, propagandistic narratives for more than 10 years. In fact, probably longer than that. Mm-hmm. When did the idea come to turn this into a book form? And let's answer that one first. And why a book form as opposed to clearly you write articles, you try to influence people through traditional legacy media? Why turn that into a book, and why do that now?
So first I'm grabbing information according to my plan, and after I grabbed a huge amount of information, I see what is the most strong part of that information, because I believe that arguments need to be strong or very strong. So I get the strongest thing, and using the strongest thing I build the story, and then editing, and in the story what is the main thing needs to be the character, the real situation, and based on the real situation you are explaining the methods or the theory things. So that is why I think it's very useful for us to show the methods of Russian propaganda, showing the real informational attacks which they did, the real informational operations, because it's visualize so many methods that they use. Gathering information for 10 years, I saw very different methods that were used by Russians. And when I was traveling around the world, especially in the Western countries, my colleagues were asking me a lot of questions connected with Russian propaganda and Russian disinformation. And they were asking me such questions which for me seems very easy to answer. And it was like even strange feeling for me, like, why are they asking this? This is obvious. But then I realized that this is obvious for me, because I'm a researcher of disinformation and I know very well how this works. They don't have this knowledge. They don't know a Russian culture, they don't know Russian methods, they don't know how the FSB works. They don't know what is in their mind. So I realized that there is a need to explain all the methodology which are used by Russians to fight the Western views, to fight the reality, to build the myths against the topics which are interesting and important for them. And as I understood that Russians are making this a very massive way. They are active in all European countries. They don't choose where to work, where not to work. They work everywhere, in every single country. And the only one difference is about some tools and methods and narratives they use, because they understand what topic is the most sensitive in this concrete country, and they use that topic to manipulate and to put the narratives they need, especially, for example, during the politician elections. They are supporting candidates who seems to be logical on some, like for example, economical topics, but on the geopolitical topics, they are influencing on them to make them decision makers in the country and to make those countries closer to Russia. And unfortunately, it's not always good for the people of this country. And that is why we need to stop that narratives, because they are not what people really need in the country to make their life better. The illusion that Russia is prosperity country, very high developed economy, is a lie.
And education. I mean, this is one of the big things, isn't it? It's got great education, great literacy, but of course the reality is that it has an elite education system, and if you go outside the large cities, it's not there. But they're very effective at creating this illusion. I mean, you see the Tucker Carlson interview. I mean, how many sort of narratives do you pick up when you see people like Tucker Carlson and others, and how many of these are organic, or are these all seeded by Moscow and its agents? So these are all manufactured realities and narratives.
Yes, the education system in Russia is totally different from those who we have, for example, in UK. If you have a diploma of history or economy, it doesn't mean that you are very great in this topic. Corruption level in universities is so high that you easily can get a diploma of a master's degree in every science you want if you just pay a few hundreds of dollars. So don't believe that if this person says that he is a scientist in history, he is a real expert in it. It means like just he was visiting some lections in the university, he might pay to his teacher to get this diploma, and he puts into his words what he wants to say, not connected with the history at all. He can or she can lie to you, looking in your eyes with no embarrassing, just feeling that I am right, because if you're asking me, then I am smarter than you are. You ask me questions, I'm answering your questions. This imperialism is so deep inside of them that they feel very strong to say all the bullshit in the world with very serious face.
And we're saying this in Kyiv, and of course, Ukraine has become more resilient over the years, but that didn't happen overnight. I get the impression that it's taken multiple attacks by Russia from sort of 2014 and even before that, and the full-scale war, for society to become more resilient against these narratives and to try to tackle these narratives in its political and media sphere. And you've observed that process taking place. So could you tell us something about how a country that is quite deeply penetrated by Russian narratives is able to, have a large-scale program of cleansing itself, let's say? And is that process over? Is it a continuous fight to try and tackle these narratives?
The process of fighting with Russian narratives is continuing even today, right now. We started from blocking the social medias. There was a huge discussion in the social medias in Ukraine that no, we don't need to do this, freedom of speech, this is so important. But it was very good that our government state level decided that no, we need to do this. And we saw that the protests against blocking Russian social medias were continuing just for 1 or 2 months. Then everyone switched, for example, from Vkontakte and Odnoklassniki to Facebook, and life became normal again. So sometimes you need to press a little bit on the society, which doesn't really like changes at all. Ukrainians want to stay in the comfy zone, in the bubble they get used to. So to change this situation with influence, sometimes you need to destroy this bubble and to put you into other place to communicate in safer place, which was in that time, for example, Facebook.
And this is a really short conversation, but something we can perhaps explore in more detail later. That's still a challenge, isn't it? Because certain platforms now have, I would say, better information. So the television marathon was launched, oligarchs are pushed out of the media, but actually the popularity of that format's gone down considerably, and people have turned to Telegram. And I wouldn't say Telegram is necessarily a safe space where, let's say, clean narratives can be curated. There's a lot of bad stuff on Telegram, and even its ownership is rather dubious about who has access to that information. It's widely believed that certainly maybe the GRU or the Russian army can potentially access a lot of stuff on there. So how challenging is that? Not just to tackle the narratives, but also to make sure people are cynical enough when they're on platforms like Telegram.
I will go to this point.
Yeah.
I will continue from the television, because you asked about what we did. Also, we blocked Russian medias. That was another step, which was also very well discussed in the societies. Many people were saying, no, we have the right to see the Russian TV channels. Why you don't giving us that access? This is our right for information. We are smart enough to analyze what is a lie, what is not. But basically, people don't realize how powerful is propaganda. So again, it was very good that government blocked, no matter that some people were not happy with that. They blocked Russian websites, they blocked Russian TV channels. And of course, changes were on the cultural level in frames of developing our policy in literature, in other media outlets, like seeing who is the owner of that media outlet. We started to investigate those things, because it's also important that even if this media doesn't say that it is Russian media, it doesn't mean that it doesn't belong to Russian person who tries to influence on Ukrainians via these websites. So it's very important for us that government again started to investigate those things. And our big mistake was that we didn't realize a level of threat of Telegram. And right now it's very bad that during the full-scale invasion, Ukrainian society get used to use Telegram as a source of information. And according to the official countings, statistics, more than a half of Ukrainians are reading news via reading Telegram channels. And people again are thinking sometimes that if I'm reading 10 or 20 Telegram channels with different opposite views, they can balance the information which they get from there, but that is a lie. You cannot see those manipulations. You cannot get this analysis very properly. So you are becoming a victim of fakes, and you cannot see the reality anymore. And because Telegram right now is used not only for reading news, but for different volunteer groups who are gathering money for army, who are gathering information about Russians again and separatists. There are many bots which were used for it. Ukrainians so used to use this platform for these different activities, so they became addicted to it, and in result right now we have so many platforms in Telegram, and we don't have alternatives outside the Telegram. And that is why Telegram is still working in Ukraine. As a journalist, I understand that Telegram is a Russian social media. It's extremely dangerous. I never message my friends, colleagues via Telegram, because I know that all I write there can be known about by Russian officials. So
locations, sensitive details.
Telegram
that kind of stuff,
Telegram gives Telegram is gathering information about the user, and if you are in the condition of war, even if it's not a full-scale invasion but an informational war, it's very useful for your enemy to get this information about you. So it's a big mistake to use this social media, and if in the country Telegram is not very popular, government needs to stop this platform until it will become so important and so popular among the people. It's better for you to use even WhatsApp rather than Telegram, because WhatsApp it doesn't belong to Russians.
Well, we're going to explore some of these themes in a lot more detail in future conversations, including when your book comes out. So let's end on a quick discussion of that, because I want people to sort of, get a taster of what's going to be in the book, get an impression of it. So later in the year, when hopefully that sort of comes out, and we do more extensive interviews on that, maybe some live events, which we're hoping to do in London as well when it's launched. Just give a little bit of a summary of the kind of things that book will cover, because I think everyone who's subscribed to this channel has heard many of these issues raised over the last 3 years, and there's a huge level of interest in how Russian propaganda narratives work, etc., and how it intersects with various platforms as well as speakers, and it penetrates different communities. So what are the kind of things the book's going to cover?
In the book, I'm going to show the structure of how Russians are influencing other nations, other countries. What methods do they use? What groups of people do they use? What tools do they use? Right now, of course, it's also connected with the social media, with TikTok, with Telegram, Instagram, and X and Facebook. And in every field where they are operating, they use very specific tools. So I want everyone to see on the concrete examples of concrete informational operations how they work, which tools do they use, how do they use those tools. And I have a lot of insiders, both from the Ukrainian side, from people who are investigating the activities of Russians in Ukraine and abroad, and also during 10 years I had interviews with Russian intelligence who were not knowing that I'm recording them and telling about how they work. So in this book there will be many insights where I don't think you can find information in the public space, and that will make the book unique content, and I think it will be very useful because it has a practical sense, because knowing how they work and which tools they use and how you can predict their actions, and you can understand how to protect yourself in your country from that influence.
Well, this is fantastic, and this teaser really wants me to go out and read the book tomorrow. But I understand you have to write it, and that takes time. But absolutely, it would be great to do, at least one interview, maybe a series of interviews on different chapters, different insights, and get your co-author on that book together as well to talk about it. And of course, we'd love to be able to introduce that to a UK audience and the international audience we've got on the channel, because I think that will be incredibly interesting for them to read. And maybe there's been more events in Parliament recently about disinformation. I think it'd be great to come and, if we could get MPs and people of influence to really understand this issue, that would be very, very valuable. For today, Liubov, thank you so much for meeting me in Kyiv. Huge pleasure and a privilege, and thanks for coming on the channel again.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very always happy to talk with you and to be useful for the audience you have. I know that you have amazing audience, and I hope that we will see each other again.